Thank you very much. Also from our side, from the European Commission services which are based in Brussels, DG Regional Policy and DG Employment. We are indeed very, very happy to be here in Riga today. We are actually touring all the capitals. I have done 6 with Riga now, and the idea is very much to explain and clarify the proposals that the Commission put on the table the 29th of May, when it proposed a new framework for cohesion policy 2021 to 2027. And this, of course, is based on a budget where the cohesion policy is one very important element. So I'm here together with Muriel from DG Employment. I also have colleagues sitting here on the first row. Ula, who is part of our policy unit. Arturo, who is part of the Latvian unit. Where is Linda? Linda? She has disappeared? Huh? No. Linda is here. Well, she will come back, I'm sure. Linda. She's deputy head of unit in the unit responsible for India and other countries. Michael Ryan is sitting at the very end, at the very back there. He is auditor from our audit directorate. So with joint resources, we hope to be able to clarify the proposals to you and also reply to the questions and note all the comments that you might have. As the colleagues have said here in Riga, we are not going to negotiate anything today. This is done in the Council, in the Parliament, in Brussels. But we would like you to be well informed of the proposals for cohesion policy in order for Latvia to make an opinion, which obviously then the Latvian authorities will discuss with the Commission. But it's very important that we feel that we will be able to understand each other. So for that reason, we welcome all possible and impossible questions, and we will do our very best to reply to them. We have quite a few slides now to present to you. Some of the slides will be raised basically just to tell you a little bit horizontally without going into too much details. But I hope that with this presentation you will see and you will hopefully understand the reasons why the new proposal looks like it does. So the Commission has proposed a budget, and this was possibly the most important budget proposal we have ever made. Why? Because United Kingdom is leaving the European Union and will not contribute to the financing for the programming period in question. And that means that it depends how you calculate, but in constant prices, 12% of the budget allocation is, or the budget contribution is actually not there anymore. That is one issue. The other issue is that we have now more important priorities than in the past to deal with. We need to deal with migration, we need to deal with defense, we need to deal with security, border management. These are also important new priorities to some extent, if you like, and they would then also need to be financed by the European budget. So at the end of the day, we are very happy that we have cohesion policy for all regions in Europe. This was not given a few months ago. Now we have a proposal for all regions in Europe, and obviously that means that all regions, richer, transition, less rich, will need to get something meaningful out of the budget. We say that we have a modern investment budget. We will continue to focus on transition to smart and to low carbon economy. It will be a stronger link to the European semester. I will come back to that in a moment. And we will also look at open data. So already now it's possible to log in to a specific website to see how how the projects are being selected, how financial indicators are performing for all regions in all countries, and we will continue with that. We will have a simpler, we hope, and we'll come back to that, and a more flexible budget. 7 funds in 1 regulation, and 80 key administrative simplifications from programming to audit. And we have actually made a little brochure, a little leaflet that we can explain to you all these administrative simplifications, because I believe that basically that you will, hopefully I believe that you would like what you see, because we are actually making a very, very important effort to simplify as much as possible. I said it was going to be for all regions, but 75% of the cohesion funding will still go to the poorest regions in Europe. We are also building in a performance review after 5 years. So we'll program the first 5 years, then we will take stock, and then we will program the last years. Why do we do that? Because we don't want to be caught as it happened with the migration crisis back in 2015, that it was difficult to find sufficient free resources to cater for emerging new needs. We don't believe that we can predict exactly what Europe would look like at the end of the next decade. So, yes, you can take the next one, because the key legal instruments that we have an ERDF regulation, a cohesion regulation, the ESF Plus, which my colleague Muriel will speak about soon, and we are integrating 3 funds which are dealing with migration and border management. The Asylum and Migration Investment Fund, the Internal Security Fund, and the Border Management and Visa Instrument. And I actually forgot also the European Maritime and Fishery Funds. All these funds are integrated in one regulation, and also all the delivery elements are there. We are not planning to come back with new implementing acts, with new guidance documents. Basically, what we have put on the table is for Member States and the European Parliament now to decide. Latvia receives funding from both the ERDF and the Cohesion Fund, and they are now merged into one regulation. We also have a ETC regulation, European Territorial Regulation, and I will come back to that on the very next slide. When it comes to Interreg, obviously, it's important to work in close coordination and cooperation with your neighbors. We have 5 strands within this new Interreg regulation. The first one is about cross-border land programs, where we will look for a more strategic approach. And we also, for the first time, bring in the rules on external borders. Because until now, there has been separate rules, and that has complicated life for beneficiaries and for everyone involved in both programs for internal borders and also on external borders. We also take a more strategic outlook on the maritime cooperation, where we propose to merge the maritime cross-border cooperation programs into larger sea basin functional areas. Here, of course, we are around the Baltic Sea, so the Baltic Sea will be such an important area. We also have a new specific component for outermost regions. I don't say too much about that. This is actually the 9 outermost regions which are located elsewhere in the world, in the Indian Ocean and in the Caribbean. When it concerns interregional cooperation, we continue with Interact and ESPON, but we take a new approach to interregional innovation instruments, and we are proposing more funding to upscale the innovation instrument across regions, so that countries and regions can use this particular instrument in order to have more funding, also including an investment components. And it can be regions in your neighborhood, but it can also be regions elsewhere in Europe. We're also proposing a new European cross-border mechanism to facilitate cross-border projects. This is presented in terms of draft regulation. Member States are offered this possibility if they are interested to use it. It's actually the idea is to facilitate implementation of cross-border projects, so you can decide which set of rules would apply. Would it be the one of one member state, or would it be the one of another member state? This is important, for example, when you for people working and living in border regions. Another issue where we have been listening to criticism over the last few years is that when you are, why is it so different rules between cohesion policy on one hand and other type of EU instruments? So we are now trying to integrate as much as possible, and here you see a few examples. Horizon Europe is research projects. They are implemented under different rules compared to cohesion policy. We are now trying, from an operational point of view, to streamline these rules. The Connecting Europe facility is financing European networks in Europe, and then we have the Cohesion Fund, and we are proposing now a transfer of 10 billion from the Cohesion Fund to the Connecting Europe facilities. This is particularly important here in Latvia, because I know that you are very much involved in the Rail Baltica project, which takes a lot of time and costs a lot of money to implement. So the idea here is to help you with two different instruments from the European budget to actually make this rail network finally implemented. I was mentioning migration a moment ago. All cohesion policy funds will address long-term needs linked to integration of migrants, and the AMI fund will focus on the short-term needs, while the regional and the social fund will focus more on the short-term needs. Modernizing the policy. Yes, at present we have 11 objectives. We are now consolidating them down to 5. We have a smarter Europe, a greener low-carbon Europe, a more connected Europe, a more social Europe, and a Europe closer to the citizens. And these are the 5 main objectives which we are proposing for the new programming period. They are very, very flexibly drafted in the regulations, which means that you have a lot of scope for flexibility to finance projects and actions which are particularly important for you in Latvia. Again, what we are proposing is something that should fit 27 member states, more than 300 regions. So obviously we had to be very flexible here, so everybody finds what is important for that country or for that region. We also have 2 horizontal objectives. Administrative capacity building is something that you can use under all these 5 objectives, and also cooperation between different countries. I was mentioning Interreg just a moment ago. Interreg is a very, very nice facility, but it's an instrument which doesn't have that much funding to its disposal. So we are now opening up, if you would like to finance border projects or projects and actions which are important for several member states, you can also, from the next programming period, without any strings or percentages or whatever, you can use your national or regional programs to do that. So it's basically a flexibility as well. Thematic concentration for ERDF. Well, obviously, as I said, we would like to maintain the spending in the key areas for growth and jobs. And here you see the different thematic concentration requirements linked to these policy objectives. For Latvia, we will then have to look for the first row, so GNI below 75%, so minimum of smarter Europe, innovation and research, 35%, and minimum of a greener, low-carbon Europe, 30%. We also propose 6% of the budget to go to urban development, which should be delivered through local development strategies. And I think, yes, I have that on the next page, right? Yes, thank you. So this is a new dedicated specific objective for integrated development of urban areas. Creating the conditions for success. Well, in this programming period, we have something which we call ex-ante conditionalities, which are basic conditions that should be fulfilled before one can start programming. Now we are cutting them from 35 to 20. We hope that they should be able a bit more clearer, and we call them enabling conditions. And the idea is that they should be implemented already from the very start of the programming period. EU governance, well, there are many things to say that. I would like to mention the European semester. The European semester is an exercise where once a year colleagues in Brussels proposed country-specific recommendations of an economic nature which should improve the growth potential, basically. We would like to link this exercise with what we are financing under cohesion policy objectives. And for the first time in March 2019, in the country-specific recommendations, which will then be decided for Latvia, we will make a link to the investment priorities now for the new programming period, if you like. Then we'll come back again in 2024. So 2 times. The idea is to link this economic analysis directly to what we are financing in Latvia and in all other member states as well, obviously. I also would like to mention the rule of law. This is a new proposal put forward by the Commission together with the overall budgetary package back in May. It means that all countries which are receiving assistance from the European budget, so it goes beyond cohesion policy funding, should also respect the fundamental rights of law. That means also respect of the judiciary and legal system, that there should be provisions in place to deal with corruption, etc. And this is the first time that the Commission put such a proposal on the table. And you may wonder then what happens if a country will be seen as not complying with these rules. Well, then there could be suspension of payments to that country, not to the beneficiary, but to the country. This is what we are proposing, and obviously we are looking forward to have an agreement on this proposal in the discussions with all member states now. Simplification and flexibility. You might have heard this before. That we are going to simplify the proposals. Well, this time around, I would really like you to give us the benefit of the doubt, because we have been working very, very much in order to come up with proposals which should indeed simplify the regulations and then also the implementation of the funds. So we now have 7 funds and 1 rule book. The rule book, or what we have proposed now, is half as long compared to last time around, and we don't have 50 key administrative simplification, we have actually 80. And we have a little leaflet with us, which I hope that we will be able to distribute to you, so you can see in the different areas where we are actually proposing simplifications. I'm going to give you a little bit of an appetite for that, so you can then look into the regulations and in this handbook a little bit more. When it comes to programming, I've already mentioned that we have already put on the table all the legislation, and we have annexes to the regulations which we have put on the table, and they are replacing 40 additional regulations which we have presently. So the idea is very much we will not come up with specific regulations of a different nature, or with the 5,000 pages guidance that we have at present. Nothing more of that. What member states have on the table now is what will remain. We will come back with a few implementing acts which are legally necessary, but not the way that it's been done until now. And we believe that this is also will speed up the discussion in the Council. Then there is actually something here when it comes to programming, which has maybe, this is important for those of you who represent managing authorities. More flexible. I said that we would then program 5 years and then 2 years. And here you see this slide, and you see the explanations here. So we will take stock after 5 years together. First of all, in Latvia, you will take stock and you will see what needs to be changed in terms of performance. Does something needs to be changed for the last 2 years? Will there be any emerging needs that we cannot foresee now that needs to be integrated in the cohesion policy? Well, then there's a possibility to do that. And also, again, I will mention the European semester. There's been a correct alignment here. So this is what we will look at, and then we will program and allocate together the 2 last years. It's not only for managing authorities. We would like to simplify at all levels. So this is simpler reimbursement by the Commission on simplified cost options. Is something that we already have now, but we would like to use that even more for the next programming period. So financing should not be linked to cost. It should be based on conditions instead. So we are cutting out a lot of eligible costs, less paperwork, receipts and invoices, as it says here. So there will be less bureaucracy from that point of view. I continue. Simpler reimbursement of beneficiaries. So from the managing authorities at member states level down to the beneficiaries. The idea again is that to make simplified cost options obligatory for operations up to 200,000 euro. And then you see also different types of flat rates solutions that we are proposing. I'll let you read this slide a bit and to reflect a little bit. So here again we are trying to do our best to, at least in the Commission's regulations, get rid of as much as possible when it comes to complexities. Eligibility. We have more clear rules now on relocation, and we are also changing the approach to VAT, if it's eligible or not. We now say that all operations below 5 million euro will be eligible for VAT, and all operations above 5 million euro will be ineligible for VAT. Because this is something which we have been discussing with many countries, with many organizations over the years, and this is actually a simplification approach as well. We will not, from the Commission side, approve major projects anymore, and we will not have specific rules on revenue-generating operations. This is also quite important new features. Then I think I've come to the audit, so maybe we'll ask Michael if you would like to join. Yeah. So Michael Ryan from our Audit Directorate in DG Regional Policy will take you through all the simplifications which have to do with, which has to do with audit.
So there was a strong call for simplification in the area of management and control. So there was a strong call for simplification in the area of control and audit, and what we've tried to do is to introduce a number of simplifications that will affect all programs, and also to introduce simplification or more simplification on a differentiated and proportionate basis linked to risks, so for well-performing programs. So in order to achieve this enhanced proportionate approach, this is for programs having an error rate of below 2% and for well-functioning systems over the previous 2 years. So there's a differentiation towards well-performing programs. I'll come back to them in a minute. But the simplifications that will benefit all programs, firstly, there'll be no designation process, which was a time-consuming exercise at the start of the previous programming period. You'd probably be glad to hear any beneficiaries here that the management verifications, the desk-based ones, will now be done on a risk basis, is what we propose. So this should reduce the number of verifications of payment claims from beneficiaries. There's an accounting function which will be responsible for the preparation of the accounts and for certifying expenditure, but the responsibility for this will fall under the managing authority now. And unlike the certifying authority in the past, this accounting function will not be able to carry out controls at the level of beneficiaries. So that should help to reduce controls at beneficiary level. In relation to audit, there's a number of simplification measures that we've tried to introduce in the proposal to streamline the procedures. The Audit Authority will be able to group programs more than in the past and even do so between two programming periods. For non-statistical sampling, the threshold is increased, allowing more scope to use non-statistical sampling. That's from 150 to 300 operations. And there will be an obligation on auditors to use whatever information is available electronically, and this through e-cohesion, etc. And this should reduce again the interaction of auditors at beneficiary level. For ETC programs, then, it's a totally new approach. There will be a single sample taken by the European Commission across all ETC programs, and this will reduce by about a factor of 10 the number of audits of operations for ETC programs. So they're the simplifications for all programs. For the enhanced proportionate approach that I mentioned for well-performing programs, ones with a lower rate for a 2-year period and a well-functioning system, there are some other simplifications. Management verifications will be done under national rules, not under EC guidelines or EC regulations, under national rules. There's no requirement for systems audits to be carried out. The Commission will no longer require those for these programs. And there's only a requirement for a sample of 30 randomly selected operations so that we get an error rate from those. And it's important to note that any program can use this approach. If you fulfill the conditions, you can start to use it, and you can start to use it from the start of the programming period. And for those programs, the Commission's audit work would be at the level of the Audit Authority. We would not go down generally to the level of beneficiaries or managing authorities. The Commission and the Member State will monitor the performance of these programs to see that they continue to operate well, and the scope for them to revert to the standard approach if the conditions no longer are fulfilled. But it's important to remember this is a Member State decision to use this enhanced proportionate approach. It's your choice, it's not one that the Commission takes a role in. And so they're the main simplifications as regards audit and control and management control systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. In case there will be questions on this specific point, of course, we are all available. Michael is very much available to reply to questions, because I appreciate that there is a lot of details which maybe some of you will see for the very first time. Yes. Use of financial instruments is also something that we are obviously continuing to encourage, and we are also coming up with some simplification measures which will facilitate the uptake of financial instruments also for the next programming period. There are some simpler rules, for example. Finally, on performance monitoring and evaluation, I said that there will be a performance review, which is called 5+2, so 5 years plus 2 years. There will not be any performance reserve anymore. We will not continue with annual implementation and progress report. Instead, we will base ourselves more on quantitative data, which already now is available on the open data platform. So when we meet once a year between the Commission and the Latvian authorities, we will look at the progress in terms of financial and performance indicators. So that was, I hope, a little bit of taste of the simplification what we have. I said that this was one of the most difficult budget proposals that the Commission has done because of the requirements and also of the UK leaving the European Union. So we have had to make some economies in order to get, hopefully, an agreement by all member states on this, because again, this is a budget for 27 member states. So we are applying lower co-financing ceilings. This is 70% for the less developed regions, so for Latvia and for Interreg and for cohesion funds. So 70% of the financing will come from the EU budget, and 30% you would need to find yourself. For regions in transition, it's even lower, it's 55%, and for the more developed regions, it's 40%. On the other hand, we have now lighter VAT requirements, and we have no specific rules, as I said, for revenue-generating projects anymore. And that can, in some instances, change the situation a little bit. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Ah. The solid, yeah? Okay, sorry. Can you go to the end then? At the, or you can just maybe. No, it's the same. It's the same presentation, but maybe the order was a bit different. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, we have many slides, so just to get them in the right order. Okay. It's lower co-financing ceilings. No, it's not that one. But okay, listen, I can repeat it. So if you, then you have to go back to challenges, huh? Mm-hmm. Okay, there we are. Okay, we changed the order a little bit. No problem. I said it was a difficult budget, and I wanted to show you. A few maps and also a few slides with, so you understand how different the situation, the economic situation is in Europe. On the first slide here, you see changes in economic growth, change in GDP per capita between the average of 2007-2009 compared to 2014-2016. And you see Greece on one side, and you see Ireland on the other side. And then you see all the countries in between. And we have put in red here the positive growth of Latvia. You are in the green, well actually you're in the red, but you're on the green side, which means that the growth has been increasing. But this is just to show you how different it is among all EU 27 countries. And maybe it's even easier to see on the next slide where you have two maps. And the maps to the left, you see the growth rate at regional level in European countries. The greener, the better. The pink or the violet, the worse. So you can see in some countries you have all the colors. In Latvia, it looks very healthy, it looks very green, because you have had a very good progress economically for this reference period. The next map you can shows the unemployment rate, and also it's the reference period 2008 to 2010 compared to 2014-2016. And the unemployment rate has indeed been reduced with more than 3%. Percentage points, if you see all the Baltic states, very much including Latvia. You see elsewhere in Europe, the picture is not so favorable. Again, The greener, the better. The violet, the worse. I show you this in order so you should all have an understanding of how different the situation looks in the different regions in Europe. We continue. There is another map which shows the GDP per capita. And here we have the average 2014-2016. You also see that some countries and some regions still have some way to go in order to catch up with the growth. So in dark orange you see countries and regions below 75% of the EU average, and we find Latvia there. This is the dark orange, if you like. The light orange, you have 75 to 100%. This is what we call transition regions. And in yellow, you see the most developed regions, if you like. And you see some countries have all the colors as well, depending on the regional situation. A few more maps, if you would have a bit of patience with me. The youth unemployment here, average 2014 to 2016. Youth unemployment here, also quite dramatic changes and dramatic situation in Europe. And the very, very last map here, it shows the population aged 25 to 64, so in working age, with a low education level. The low education level. So to the left you have youth unemployment, and to the right you have population with a low education level. Also quite different, quite a lot of differences. The very two last maps, the first one, where almost everyone is in pink, if not in violet, it concerns the greenhouse gas emissions and the distances to the 2030 targets. And you see that Ireland and Belgium in particular have a little bit further to go, but actually I don't have any of the countries or any of the regions here in green, so we all have some work to do there. The very last map here shows the net migration of non-EU citizens, and there you see Sweden, Germany, Austria standing out as having received a lot of migrants, in particular since the migrant crisis started in 2015. Why do I show you all this? Well, I want to explain why the Commission has made a proposal that it has on the allocations. We are using something which is called the Berlin method because it was first conceived there more than 10 years ago for the period 2000-2006. And it actually means that the relative growth, the GDP per capita, is actually determining most of the allocation. So here 2014-20, first column, the second column, the new programming period. It goes down a little bit, but it's still 81%, which will go directly based on the GDP growth. And then we have added a few more socioeconomic factors. If you think about the maps that I just showed you, labor market, education, demographics, climate and migration. So climate and migration are new factors which are then very little, but still, for some countries this is important. They are influencing the allocation of the funds. So overall the system is rather stable, I would say, but with a little bit of adjustment on the margins. The next page shows a very heavy table, but there you can see the allocations by member state, and you can see something which we call aid intensity. It's the number of euro per head, per inhabitant. So Estonia is top of the list with 317 euro per head, is according to the proposal, and the Netherlands at the very bottom of the list, well, 12 euros per head, and in between there you have all the other countries. We have singled out Latvia. You see that Latvia is 308, will receive 308 euros per head, which makes it number 3 in top of EU 27. 4.3 billion will be the allocation in constant prices, and this is minus 13% compared to the current programming period. Why does it go down? Because you've been doing very well. You have actually been increasing your wealth, your growth, and that has an impact compared to some other countries. So the aid intensity remains the third highest in the EU. So this is also important. When we put all the funds together, we'll see that for 2021 to 2027, we still will spend 75% on the less developed regions when you put it all together, if you like, including also the cohesion fund. And the more developed regions will receive less funding. So if the Commission gets its way, we have made a proposal, as was said initially. This is what the new regional eligibility map would look like. This is what it will look like. So this is our proposal. We hope very much that Council and Parliament can go quickly now and to decide quickly on the next steps. Sorry. Yes, okay, sorry. It's my mistake. Here is what I started to speak about before, yes. So the lower co-financing rate I was mentioning, but you didn't have anything to refer to. So no, maybe if I can just say a few words on that, if you go back, yes, exactly. So 70% co-financing rates for less developed regions, cohesion fund and Interreg. And then you see 55% for transition regions, and you see 40% for the most developed regions. The next slide, this is rather technical, but it shows that what we have, the decommitment rule from N+3 now goes back to N+2, and we do that during a number of years. And then I come maybe to the next steps, yes. So the next steps will be that we have now made a proposal 6 weeks ago. Council and European Parliament are already discussing our proposals. We would hope very much that it will be ready by May next year for a specific European summit which will take place in Romania, so that we can quickly commit and start the work for the next programming period. But of course we are in the hands of the Member States and the European Parliament. That was all from my side. Now I hand over to Muriel, please.
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be among you this afternoon. So as Lena was saying, this package of budgetary proposals are really for proposing a dynamic and also a future-oriented budget for the EU. And of course, for meeting some challenges for the future, investing in people is very important. It will create the opportunities for more innovation, more inclusive societies, and also more competitive and resilient societies in the EU. So the ESF Plus is a proposal for underlining this goal of investing more in people. And why do we need that? Well, there are many changes that we are starting already to face, and that will be even bigger in the future. The first one is, of course, the evolution in technologies, digitalization, and globalization in general that actually impact very much on all the skills and the training systems, the education system that we have to support. The second one is that, of course, there was some progress in employment situation in the EU, but the crisis has still created some legacy for many people in the EU. So there are still important long-term in employment. And we all know that youth has paid the toll. There is a generation that still has a lot of difficulties to enter their own personal lives, but of course also the professional life. So there's a lot of investment to do on that. There's been some progress in reducing poverty, but still it is still very high. It's no secret that the EU 20 target on poverty reduction will not be met, and social exclusion is still high, in particular in certain social groups. And then we have important demographic trends that are a reality, and I think Latvia is very well aware of that because it is experiencing that. We have an aging population. In 2030, 1 out of 4 Latvians will be more than 65. We have migration that also require robust migration management systems, but also the capacity to integrate the people into our societies and in the labor markets. And there are also changing patterns in our families that need to be taken care of. In relation also with our capacity to combine work and our private life. We will need to care even more for our parents or some members of our families. And if we need more people on the labor market, we must ensure that also there are opportunities for childcare and so on. So all this means that we will need to invest even more for reskilling, upskilling, and not only the low-skilled, but the medium-skilled, the high-skilled people will need to go through this reskilling wave. We need to improve active labor market policy as well. We need to have new policies for employability of people, because if the working age population is reducing, well, we need to keep some people still even more in the cycle. So all these challenges are there, and that's why the proposal for the ESF was tabled in order to support all these new challenges. Now, we have also, as Lena was saying, tried to simplify the different instruments for human capital investment in those proposals. That is why the European Social Fund Plus actually combines, some different tracks that we had under the Fund for the Most Deprived, the FEAD. We have the youth employment initiatives completely enshrined in the normal management of the ESF, and we have, of course, the employment, education, and social inclusion objectives that we already had in the current ESF. And for this, we have proposed 100 billion euro to support that policy. Now, inside the ESF Plus, we also have put some programs that are more transnational in order to also support some innovative actions. And these are the former program EASY, so it's really to experiment and make some social innovation, and also support labor mobility, fairer labor mobility in the EU. And we have also introduced the health program, which is really made for actually designing the health systems of tomorrow in the EU. The objectives, the overall objective of the European Social Fund Plus are to support in particular the European Pillar of Social Rights. You all have this in your pocket, I guess. This is commitments by the EU institutions, but also representative of social partners, the different institutions, European Parliament, your governments, and as you will see in the structure of the objectives, this follows very much the general division of the different objectives of the European Pillar of Social Rights. As Lena said, it will also be very closely linked to the European semester and the structural reforms that are also analyzed and advised in those cycles and in the country-specific recommendation. So, what about the different objectives? As I said, this is really to support a more social Europe in general by meeting some everyday challenges faced by the citizens, creating job opportunities for unemployed people, enhancing the quality of education and training for all, children, young people, adults. We want to develop also work-based learning, and of course giving the most disadvantaged group people in society helping and to get more social inclusion. There are also references to migrant integration and to dealing with basic material assistance for the most deprived. And of course, as for the other instruments of the package, the ESF is also there to support smarter Europe and also the climate mainstreaming in that. The ESF Plus will also work more in synergy with the different budgetary interventions. This will be the case, of course, with ERDF, with EU Invest, but also with programs like Erasmus. Erasmus, in the proposal of the Commission, has also been given, we propose to give much more budgetary means, but also we increase the capacity to reflect on more innovative education system. So the ESF and Erasmus have to work together also for being more efficient in each of the intervention. As was said previously, we will also use the semester to link it more to the ESF intervention. So that really the concentration of the priorities will really support the main priorities of the reforms and the challenges met by the different member states. There is a minimum percentage of expenditure that we propose to be used for social inclusion. And we also propose that 10% of the allocations are being used for youth and employment in the member states where you have a very high not in education and employment and training young people. We also propose that there will be 2%, a minimum of 2%, to be used for supporting the most deprived, so the ex-FEAD type of action, while we think that overall for the EU we would like 4% to be spent on average for material deprivation. But for each member state, it should be a minimum of at least 2%. So the part on material deprivation in the ESF Plus is basically a continuation of the type of support that were provided under the operational programs under FEAD, the number 2, for those who know a little bit. And so basically the provision of food and basic material assistance, including through vouchers, and also accompanying measures. And I think in Latvia there was really a development of your FEAD program towards a link between the basic food assistance and material assistance, and also some accompanying measures that are interesting for developing in the future. And we also want to use already the omnibus simplification that have just been adopted to continue in the simplification for the management of ex-FEAD type of actions. And we believe that our proposal make even simpler the application. So these are really the objective and the components of the ESF Plus proposal. This is accompanied by an additional support tool, which is, by the way, outside the financial perspectives. We want to keep it flexible. And this is about the European Globalization Fund. But which is also to accompany the big transitions that we are already facing, but that we will continue to face in our in a society, mainly targeted to, of course, the workers and the self-employed affected by important structural change. The thing compared to what exists now is that we have enlarged the capacity of the EGF to intervene, because now any significant restructuring events is actually when more than 250 workers are made redundant. For those who knew a little bit about the EGF, it was 500 workers before. And it's independently on the reasons of the cause of the redundancy. And this is particularly the case when it will be triggered in particular because of changing trade patterns, global trade patterns, automation, digitalization, and transition to low-carbon economy. So this is really a tool for also supporting workers when affected by this big change, which will, of course, continue, but we have to make an opportunity of this and mitigating, of course, the difficult situation that many of them can meet in those situations. So to conclude, really, the ESF Plus is really an instrument to empower people and to make the best of the changing world of work we are in, we have entered now. This is also to show the solidarity and accompany those who need the most. And, well, again, towards future of Europe and future of Latvia as well. Thanks.
Yes, thank you for both of your presentations. I believe they have raised already, I see in my questions, many questions, but probably let's start with the questions from the audience. And if you could also, when asking the question, present yourself. And let's do like we collect a few questions together and then we answer, and then we probably go for another round of the questions.
Labdien, Vens Armāns Krauklis, Reģionālā attīstības centra apvienības vadītājs. Reģionālā attīstības centri ir 21 vidēja izmēra pašvaldība Latvijā, kur ir gan pilsēta, gan lauku teritorija. Un pie reizes esmu arī Valkas novada domas priekšsēdētājs. Tā ir salīdzinoši neliela pašvaldība ar pilsētu un lauku teritoriju pie pašas Igaunijas robežas. Un tas nebūs jautājums, bet drīzāk komentārs par visu dzirdēto. Mēs jau šo piedāvājumu esam rūpīgi izpētījuši, veikuši arī iedzīvotāju aptaujas, aptaujājuši visus mērus, kā viņi to vērtē. Un es gribu to sadalīt divās daļās. Viens par finansu piedāvājumu un otrs par saturisko. Ja mēs runājam par finansu piedāvājumu, tad mūsuprāt šis piedāvājums nav ne taisnīgs, ne loģisks. Jo tātad mēs redzam, ka Latvija tiešām ir bijusi teicamniece gan fiskālās disciplīnas jomā, gan tiešām efektīvi izmantojas kohēzijas fondus, un par to paldies, ka šādi fondi ir. Bet tā rezultātā mēs esam pazaudējuši 24% savu iedzīvotāju. Tieši ekonomiski aktīvajā vecumā, un līdz ar to mēs domājam, ka piedāvājumi būtu jābūt vismaz tādā pašā līmenī, kā tas ir bijis līdz šim. Jo, ko mēs redzam, tās valstis, kur ir ar visšvakāko disciplīnu, Spānija 5% pieaugums, Grieķija 8% pieaugums, Itālija 6% pieaugums. Tas diezgan vai veicina to, ka šīs valstis kļūs disciplinētākas un prātīgāk šo naudu izmanto. Savukārt par mums man ir pilna pārliecība, ka, un to mēs redzam šajā plānošanas periodā, jo tiešām šīs pieejamās programmas gan degradētās vides revitalizācija, gan uzņēmējdarbības atbalsta iespējas, gan izglītības uzlabošanas, tās dod rezultātu. Un mēs redzam, ka tur, kur šie fondi tiek lietoti, iedzīvotāji aizplūšana palēlinās. Bet ne tikai palēlinās. Mūsu uzdevums kopumā tomēr būtu radīt Latvijā tādus apstākļus, lai šie te iedzīvotāji šeit paliktu, un tādējādi mēs stiprinātu arī Eiropas Savienības austrumu robežu. Jo, protams, teritorija bez iedzīvotājiem, tā ir arī drošības apdraudējums visai Eiropas Savienībai. Otrs tātad līdzfinansējums. Jau šajā plānošanas periodā tās pašvaldības, kas aktīvi ar šiem fondiem strādā, mēs faktiski gandrīz esam izsmēluši savu aizņemšanās limitu. Un ja līdzfinansējums būs 70%, tas ir līdzfinansējums būs jānodrošina 30%, tad ir ļoti nopietnas risks, ka tieši tās teritorijas, kur šī nauda ir visvairāk jāiegulda, vienkārši nespēs šos fondus apgūt. Tādēļ man ir aicinājums noteikti šo nosacījumu pārskatīt. Vai ir nepieciešams noteikti tik stingri procenti, cik, piemēram, tur zaļai karbona emisijai 30% un viedai Eiropai konkrēts procents? Es domāju, ka daudz saprātīgāk būtu, ja dalībvalstīm šeit būtu lielāka fleksibilitāte, jo jebkurš projekts, gan izglītībā, gan, ja tā ir uzņēmējdarbības atbalsts, beigās arī noved pie mazākas karbona emisijas. Bet diezgan vai viņi var palikt tiešā veidā zem šādiem te uzdevumiem. Savukārt par saturisko daļu es varu teikt arī labus vārdus. Un tiešām mūs priecē tas, ka šīs te pašvaldību un pašvaldību apvienības varēs uz savu stratēģiju balstītas projektu idejas attīstīt tieši tādā veidā, kā katrā vietā ir vajadzīgs. Tas ir pluss, par to paldies. Mēs noteikti būsim aktīvi un gribēsim to darīt. Arī uzņēmējdarbības atbalsta turpināšana mums ir ļoti svarīga, un arī to mēs uzskatām par labu lietu. Arī kopienu iniciatīvas. Es tūlīt pabeigšu. Un vēl, kas attiecās uz Berlīnes metodi, tad tomēr, skatoties šajos kritērijos, mēs redzam, ka tā depopulācijas problemātika tajās nav ņemta vērā, un tas ir ļoti svarīgi.
Paldies, Kraukļa kungs. Tad varbūt vēl pāris jautājumus paņemsim. Šķilters kundze.
Labdien, paldies. Sanīts Šķilter, Latvijas pašvaldības savienība. Vispirms liels paldies Eiropas komisijai, ka jūs atbraucāt. Tas tiešām mēs to novērtējam, un darbs ir izdarīts ļoti liels, un mēs tiešām saprotam, ka tad, kad runa par naudu, tie lēmumi nav vienkārši. Tomēr mēs gribētu uzsvērt, ka Latvija iestājoties Eiropas Savienībā pilnībā atvēra savu teritoriju brīvai preču pakalpojumu un darba spēku kustībai. Cenas ir ne tikai līdzsvarojušās, mēs zinām, ka atsevišķos segmentos cenu līmenis ir arī lielāks Latvijā nekā citos reģionos. Kraukļa kungs jau pieminēja šo depopulāciju, kas tiešām ir kritiska Latvijai, kas ir šīs atvērto robežu un arī ekonomiskās attīstības sekas. Līdz ar to šajā pamatlīgumā noteiktais, ka šī konverģences mērķis ir tuvināt šo reģionu attīstību, mūsuprāt, ir būtisks. Un 14 gadu laikā, lai arī jūs rādījāt, ka jā, mēs esam bijuši savā izaugsmē, arī pēc krīzes, visai sekmīgi, tomēr tas būtiskākais ir, kāds būs šis dzīves līmenis Eiropas Savienībā, vai viņš būs vienots. Ja mēs to pārskatāmā nākotnē nesasniegsim, tad visai Eiropas Savienībai tā būs iekšējā problēma starp reģioniem, un šīs mērķa nesasniegšana 14 gadus pēc iestāšanās mūsu skatījumā ir pārāk zema. Tas, ko mēs noteikti gribētu, ka šīs Latvijas pamat, arī ko gan sociālā iekļaušana, gan sinerģija jūsu pieminētā, tas būtiskākais, diemžēl Latvijā, lai šos visus mērķus īstenotu, ir pamata infrastruktūras, tomēr joprojām kritiskais stāvoklis. Un tie tomēr ir ceļi, lauku ceļi, tā ir sasniedzamība un, diemžēl, ne skolas, ne darba spēka kustība. Kilometru ziņā tie ir nelieli attālumi, bet, ja mēs runājam arī, piemēram, par to pašu veselības aprūpi, ātrās palīdzības, tad nenovēl nevienam no mums atrasties kādā no ļoti tuvām vietām Latvijā, kurā šīs ceļu infrastruktūra nav. Un līdz to šīs pamata infrastruktūras, tas arī ir šīs iedzīvotāju pārcelšanās iemesls ļoti daudzos gadījumos. Un arī es gribētu uzsvērt, ka šī mazapdzīvotība visā Eiropas Savienībai, kā austrumu robežas gadījumā, tas ir ļoti kritiski, jo daudzi Latvijas pagasti, un šeit es runāju uzsveru par pagastu, nevis pat novadu līmenī, ir ar iedzīvotāju blīvumu zemāku šobrīd nekā Eiropas Savienības ziemeļu reģionu, kur tātad par šo, tā kā tur tas iedzīvotāju blīvums ir liels, ir ļoti maziņš, tātad ir šis speciālais atbalsts. Mēs noteikti arī esam ļoti skeptiski un, pareizāk sakot, pat lūdzam ņemt Eiropas komisijai un šos specifiskos nosacījumus, kad ir tātad 65% obligāti Latvijai nākošajā plānošanas periodā būtu tātad šīm viedajai un zaļai Eiropai šim mēķim jātērē. Es domāju, ka jūs, jau komisija, tiešām mēs arī esam priecīgi, tātad šī pilsētvides programma, šīs integrētā attīstība, tātad jūs esat novērtējuši. Un mūsuprāt, katram mērķim un katrai tātad arī šai konverģencei tas primārais ir mērogs. Un ja mēs gribam šos tiešām integrētās attīstības mērķus sasniegt gan sociālā iekļaušanā, gan darba spēkā, gan citos mērķos, tad tas pareizākais tomēr ir dot šo lielāku elastību dalību valstīm, reģioniem un pašvaldībām. Jo tas mērogs, kurās šos mērķus mēs gribam sasniegt, ir dažāds. Attiecībā uz Eiropas komisijas centralizētajām programmām, jā, tie ir tie mērķi, tie globālie izaicinājumi, kas tad būtu jārisina Eiropas Savienības līmenī, bet mēs esam ļoti maza valsts, un tās mūsu iespējas piedalīties šajās kopējās programmās ir ierobežotas kaut vai ar to, ka mēs esam cilvēku skaita ziņā. Līdz ar to mēs būtu tomēr pateicīgi, ja šajās kopējās globālajos izaicinājumos, un tātad šie globālie izaicinājumi būtu nevis nacionālajās aploksnēs, bet šajās kopējās komisijām, bet šīm mazajām valstīm to tomēr būtu iezīmēt kādi minimālās, teiksim, uz ko viņi var pretendēt, kā arī būtu vajadzīga šī palīdzība, lai mēs varam šajās programmās startēt.
Es atvainojos, varētu īsāk?
Jā, un pēdējais Berlīnas metode, es teikšu tā, ka mēs varbūt saprotam, kāpēc tas ir radies, bet attiecībā uz pamatlīgumā noteikto konverģences mēs to nepieņemam. Mums tas nav pieņemams. Paldies.
Paldies. Nu tad varbūt vēl vienu jautājumu no zāles. Dita?
I can speak in English if that's easier. So I'm coming from State Education Development Agency. We are the national contact point for Horizon 2020. We implement Erasmus and a great deal of European Social Fund and ERDF in education and science. My first point is I didn't hear anything about research. Can you at least a few things tell about that? Support of research, I mean. And the second thing is long-lasting mentioning synergy between several instruments and programs like European Social Fund and Horizon 2020 and European Social Fund and Erasmus+. My question is, we keep hearing it and we keep having it in mind, but never in fact actually knew what is the vision of European Commission, what the synergy should be about. Is that meant that the European Regional and Social Fund should complement both programs or vice versa? Because in fact, vice versa, it's not very possible because these Erasmus Plus and Horizon programs are programmed and administered and regulated absolutely by different policies and different, not different policies, but different targets and aims. So at least I would appreciate some words about the synergies, which is so difficult always to understand what you mean by that. Thank you.
Paldies. Jā, tagad varētu atbildēt.
Thank you very much for the questions and comments. The European Commission is proposing a budget for 27 member states. 27 member states must, at the end of the day, agree on the content of the budget and also on the financing. So I showed you all these maps in order to be able to demonstrate that the situation across Europe is different. At the end, everybody needs to be able to sign up to this. And I agree very much that from the Latvian perspective, well, from any member state perspective, obviously you should retain people in your country. That is the goal, including in rural and border regions, as you mentioned. It's obviously important that you do that. What can we do with the cohesion policy? Well, there will still be 4.3 billion euros that Latvia will receive if this proposal survives the Council and the European Parliament. And what we can do in the negotiations with Latvian authorities is to try to together push as much as possible that the entire country will indeed benefit from this cohesion policy spending. And that means regional levels, it means municipalities as well. So I think that with the money that you will receive, there are ample opportunities to try to improve the conditions, infrastructure and others, also in rural and border areas. With the content here, you have a lot of the solutions in your own hands in Latvia. We are obviously going to support you to address these issues, so in the end you can retain people in your country. That's very important. I heard that you mentioned as well that some countries, in particular in the southern part of Europe, they are receiving more money because they are performing less. Well, they are performing less well when it comes to GDP. But I also remember more 10 years ago in Latvia, the situation here was a little bit dramatic. And, you know, these things can happen. I'm sure that you will agree with me that this was not only Latvia's fault that you had such a crisis 10 years ago. There are also factors, external factors coming from outside. So indeed, in Spain, in Greece, in some parts of Italy, you saw the maps were very different. They indeed struggle with lots of unemployment and youth unemployment. But we can also see very recently that, you know, the figures are starting to pick up. And obviously, it's in all our interest that we don't have that we don't maintain this situation anywhere in Europe. I think the solidarity needs to be for everyone. It's a solidarity policy, it's an investment policy, but the solidarity needs to be for everyone in Europe. And at the end of the day, the idea is, of course, to be able to use cohesion policy successfully in Spain and Italy, in Latvia. So far you have been using it very well in Latvia. And let's hope that for the next programming periods you will not need so much cohesion policy anymore. I mean, that's the idea, for all countries and all regions to actually become self-sustainable. You mentioned 70%. Yes, I can understand going down from 85% to 70%. That will have a bit of impact. Last week when I was traveling in some of your neighboring countries here, the Nordic countries, they were quite critical of the high level of co-financing rates. You know, again, they thought we should have gone down to 50%, quite frankly. You know, at the end of the day, we need to find a proposal which economically can get the support of all the countries. You are now in Latvia a less developed region. That will mean that with this proposal, again, if it survives, you get 70%. You mentioned other countries. If I mention Estonia and Lithuania, they will receive 55% because they are in transition region. They are not very happy about that either. You know, nobody is really very happy about that. Some countries would like us to decrease the co-financing rate. Others would like us to increase the co-financing rate. At the end of the day, as I said initially, we are having a difficult situation with the United Kingdom leaving, an important net contributor to the budget and emerging needs. So this is our proposal. Now it's for member states to decide, but I just want to explain a little bit where we are. And thank you very much also for your positive words about the content of our proposals. Then there was a question or a comment, I think, about social inclusion, and I don't know if there is something you would like to mention, something about combined with healthcare. Is that something that you would like to say something about, Muriel?
No, it's just maybe two
Yeah.
two comments. Of course, as on the synergies, and some comments on where to put the money first. I think that in general, it's true that the proposals will require from the member states to be even more strategic and think about how they want to use the EU money and reflecting the national strategy. And about this issue of infrastructure, other type of investments, I think we are not in competition there. We shouldn't see that as a competition. Maybe from a local authority point of view, I understand where you talk from. But if you don't have the good construction worker with the necessary skill, if you don't have the engineers, if you don't have the pupils, in any case, to be kept in high schools and so on, but you can build the nice roads and the facilities, you know. So everything has to work hand in hand. So human capital investment and, of course, some important infrastructure, but also some growth, entrepreneurial investments have to go hand in hand. So you need, of course, to think even more with this in mind. Now, for the synergies between the funds, I would give a couple of examples. You in Erasmus, also with the revamped means proposed by the Commission, you will have both more means to work between the member states on thinking about what is the good performance education system, what works, what can be spread between the experience between the member states. You will have more means for students or apprentices to to be given support through Erasmus. And then afterwards, actually in the structural funds, you can use these better and more investment under Erasmus to actually spread in different programs, different investments. For example, on how to design your curriculum on certain issues. What kind of vocational education and training system can be improved? I mean, you have started your reform on vet education with the ESF and also with ERDF. I think these are the kind of things that you can really continue and even enhance in the next generation of program. But with taking into account some other programs' results. On research, you can have, on Horizon 2020, I speak for the SF, you will have even more societal research that can be after implemented practically. And I'm sure that on other issues, ERDF can also implement in the different national programs some findings of the research. And as far as researcher support is concerned, I don't see a big difference compared to now. I think it can be continued both in Horizon 20 and in ERDF plus ESF plus. But of course you have to design. You have to start from now to look how you want to use actually the different instruments and fructualize the results of some of the funds into the national program and into the structural reforms.
Thank you. Maybe just two comments in relation to research. Actually, you were asking for synergies. Well, what we are proposing now in the new framework is that it should be easier to pick up research projects under Horizon Europe, under LIFE, and under Erasmus+, which cannot receive any funding under these instruments. Let's say that projects have been selected. They have the very good labeling. But they cannot be selected because there is no enough funding under these instruments. Then it can be instead be directly selected by the managing authorities without any new selection procedures. And this is a new synergy, if you like, that we have in the new regulations. And even better, it will be funded under the original rules when it comes to state aids and etc., which will make a difference. So the state aid rules of Horizon 2020 will apply even if they are picked up by a managing authority for cohesion policy. And I think that this is actually a step in the right direction. That's the first comment. I also wanted to say that somebody was mentioning that Latvia is a small country. It's not always easy to compete globally for these type of centrally managed instruments. Very true. I have heard that from a region in Sweden and a region in France. They have said exactly the same thing. But over the years, they have been supporting local and regional universities with cohesion policy spending for innovation and research. So now, after a number of years, I have to say, they are really up so they can compete also on a more European level. So this is also one help that you can get from the new policy objective 1, then, if you like. Okay, thank you.
Paldies. Vēl jautājums, lūdzu. Vēl jautājumu. Jā, lūdzu.
pašvaldību savienību. Pievienojoties manai kolēģei, Sanitai, es gribēju mazliet pievērst uzmanību, teiksim, šim depopulācijas jautājumam, ja viena cilvēka cena ir 2,6 miljoni, tad, teiksim, mēs zinām, cik mums miljoni ir aizbraukuši projām. Un tagad, ja mēs runājam par šiem 70% līdzfinansējumu likmi, tad es gribētu jautāt, vai ir iespējams kaut ko mainīt, diskutēt, jo, teiksim, izmaksās šie 70% iet uz attiecināmām izmaksām, bet projektos ir ļoti daudz neattiecināmo izmaksu. Un tā kā Valkas mērs minēja, ka tas jau šobrīd sagādā pašvaldībām un Latvijai kopumā pietiekami lielas problēmas, tad šīs te līdzfinansēja jautājums ir ļoti, ļoti kritisks. Jautājums, vai Eiropas komisija varētu izskatīt jautājumu par izmaiņām, ja mēs piedotu ekonomiski pierādītus faktus.
Paldies. Varbūt, ja nav jautājumu no zāles, ir, bet varbūt es vienkārši skatos, ka ir arī skatītāji, kā saka, sasūtījuši. Tad viens ir interesants jautājums par programmēšanu, 5+2 pieeja, un kas notiek, ja pēc šiem 5 gadiem nav jaunu specifisko rekomendāciju. Vai tas nozīmē, ka viss ir izpildīts un ka par jaunu fondu jāprogrammē? Nu, tāds ir jautājums. Un vēl viens, varbūt ļoti tehnisks jautājums ir par to, ka pēc priekšlikuma ir plānots, kā respektīvi neiekļaut vairs lidostas, un ka Latvijas pieredze finansējot lidostas, īpaši samazinot CO2 emisijas, ir bijušas pietiekami, teiksim, labi pieredze veiksmīgi. Ar 2 jautājumu vēl, kas ir ienākuši. Un tad varbūt mēs Sanītu, bet īsu, ne ļoti garu, ja var.
Mēs tiešām saprotam, ka šie naudas jautājumi un galīgais lēmums būs pašu dalību valstu vidū. Tas, ko mēs tiešām aicinātu. Mēs saprotam arī šos lielos mērķus. Tomēr šie nosacījumi, kas jau šobrīd komisijas piedāvājumā tiek uzlikti, kā tad, jau manis minētie tātad 65% 2 mērķiem un vēl citi nosacījumi, noved pie tā, ka gala rezultātā, kā jūs teicāt, jā, ir vajadzīgi gan šie ieguldījumi sociālajā iekļaušanā, darbspēka attīstībā un tā tālāk, viņi īstenībā nav integrēti ieviešami. Un piedodiet, bet šo tātad dažādu nosacījumu ieviešana traucē šai integrētai un šo kopējo mērķu sasniegšanai. Un, manuprāt, šis kopējais mērķis visā Eiropas Savienībā ir, lai šis iekšzemes koprodukts reģionos būtu arvien līdzīgāks. Un, piedodiet, bet šo nosacījumu ieviešana man kā bērnam, kas skolā gāja arī padomju laikā, atgādina tādus nosacījumus, kas Latvijai bija jāievieš kukurūzas lauku procentuālajā apsēšanā, kas nenoliedzami dažās gadījumos ir pozitīvi, bet nevienmēr. Līdz to tiešām mans aicinājums ir šos īpašos ierobežojumus pārskatīt.
Paldies par aicinājumu. Tad varbūt atbildam uz šiem. Maybe you can reply to questions we have now on the table.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for the questions. 70% is proposed as the co-financing rate for the less developed regions. And this is on the table. We are not going to change that. We have made a proposal. Now it's up to member states to agree on this proposal in combination with everything else. So that we are not changing. But what we have proposed is that it should be applied at priority level. Now, if you would like within a country to modulate the co-financing, you can do that. But what you would send to us in Brussels would be, we would not pay more than 70%. But if you would have some internal ways of, between state or region or municipality, I don't want to get into any Latvian issues here, but obviously at priority level, this is what we say for 70%. So in this case, this is on the table. 5+2, this is indeed a very good question, I think, for whoever came up with this, because it's new, all right? So what we would like is to step back after 5 years of programming and to make sure that nothing else has come there had not been any new emerging needs, as we say, that the performance is on track, and that Latvia in this case is well on track also to follow up on the country-specific recommendations. If everything is fine, of course, you just continue. You just continue, you reprogram the 2 last years in the same way. But it's a moment to reflect based on the data of 2024. But this is for you to come up with this. But if nothing has changed, everything seems okay. You just continue. No problem. Airports. I think the line is very much that we would not finance regional airports across Europe. It has not been extremely helpful for growth and jobs across the European Union. We have several reports from the European Court of Auditors which are very flagrantly pointing this out. The situation in Latvia as such, I'm seeing if maybe Arturo or Linda could help me a little bit here with the background for airports in Latvia. Yes. Yes, thank you.
We have been supporting in the past programming period the Riga airport massively, and up till now it's considered as an institution which is determining big gains, so there will be no need for further support from the cohesion policy in the future. As regards the regional airports, yeah, you hear here. I don't know if they... As regards, so I repeat for the benefit of, the Riga airport has received massive funding in the past programming period, and there is no alleged need for further support, also because there is, it's an economic operation which has considerable returns, and even the investments for safety and environmental issues can be covered by the economic returns of the airport in the future. As regards the regional airports, is the policy throughout Europe not to promote the development of airports which might not have a strong economic return in terms of cost benefit for the local realities, even if we acknowledge the need for increasing transport facilitation in regions which are not very well connected in the country. But of course regional policy will not cover, and cohesion policy will not cover all the investment needs of the country, and we expect the national budget to contribute.
Okay, thank you. Paldies. Vai ir vēl kādi jautājumi, komentāri, viedokļi, jo mēs tuvojamies mūsu sesijas beigām? Nav. Ir laiks. Vienu īsu jautājumu, jā. Okay. Akadēmi.
Paldies. Yeah. Thank you very much for the very interesting, important presentation, a lot of information. However, my question would be a little bit beyond the instruments that you were discussing, but rather related to the future of the cohesion policy. There is a certain trend, as for example we can see from the documents, at least the cohesion policy in the new framework, financial framework, is called as a cohesion and values. So you mentioned a number of European level values. However, it would be interesting to know why values are coming now to the title, and how it is linked to the future of cohesion policy, which is under the big of stress, right? It's not only Brexit, it's also, you know, the position of different countries, it's also the lack of cohesion in Europe, it's lack of real convergence, a number of elements. So it would be interesting to know who are really supporters of the cohesion policies, who are friends of the cohesion policies, of the initiative that Commission is providing. And how can you see the future of it beyond this current discussion, which already is difficult? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Murauska from University of Latvia. Very strategic question.
Thank you. Very interesting question indeed. Well, we who believe in cohesion policy, and I understand you belong to us who believe in cohesion policy, we believe that this is not only an investment policy, but also a policy of solidarity, which is very close to the citizens at all levels in a country, municipalities, regions, national level. It touches basically all the fields of a country, particularly in such a country like Latvia. And for that reason, we believe that cohesion policy is a very, very good expression of the value added of Europe, if you like, the value added of the European Union. So for that reason, I also said initially, I'm very pleased, I'm personally very pleased as well, that we have been managing to propose a cohesion policy for all regions in Europe, richer, in the middle, and less rich, so that cohesion policy can actually make its contribution at the level where people live and work. It's particularly interesting maybe for Interreg, for cross-border projects which are bringing people together from different countries, from different regions, are also extremely important. And if we didn't do Interreg, nobody else would, if you like. It's really European added value. So it's actually a very, very important part of the budget, and we hope it remains after the discussions in the Council in the European Parliament. And values, I think, is linked to that as well, because if you sometimes ask yourself, you remember maybe March 2017, President Juncker was launching a consultation of a white paper, and he was setting out different scenarios for what we should have the European Union to. There were 5 of these scenarios. Should it be minimum work? Should it be the internal market only? That was one option. Another option was, should only the countries which are really interested to go forward with a deeper integration do so, and the others could be left a little bit aside? A third issue was, should we do much more than what we do now? I mean, we had 5 issues in the end, and he was consulting everyone on that. And also, I should have said initially that this also cohesion policy framework was consulted for all the population of Europe. Actually, we received more than 11,000 replies formally, and we also received a lot of replies informally as well, of course. So the idea was very much to facilitate reflection. What should we do with the European Union? And integrated here, what should we do with the European budget? And what very much came out of it was that from the cohesion policy point of view, this is an important policy area which indeed serves the citizens. It's very close to the citizens, so it's something that we should continue with. When it comes to values, that's interesting, and I think this is also something to do with the social pillar, and that's why I think that Muriel is better than me to explain the social pillar and what has happened there in very recent years. But also I was mentioning initially the rule of law, and this is also values, if you like. So I think also one should bring in that part of the picture. But maybe on the social pillar?
No, I think we should be proud that cohesion and values are actually put together, because it actually translates the development of the debate on the future of Europe, and the fact that we want to build a creative, fairer, inclusive societies, including for the economic and social development on democratic societies, and this is probably the added value of the European project at this very time. And of course, with the pillar development that is also based on rights. So,
Values
yeah.
and rights, you may say.
Yes, but rights are in the values.
Yeah.
There are societies that are not based on rights. So I think it's the positive aspect, and the ambition behind is quite clear.
Okay, thank you. Paldies. Vēl pirms nobeidzam mūsu diskusiju, mēs esam sagatavojuši vismaz tiem, kas ir palikuši, balsošanu. Nobalsosim par šīm 5 piedāvātajām prioritātēm. Un es tūlīt ieslēgšu slaido. Nu, tie, kas zina slaido, tie, kas nezina, tūlīt redzēsim. Tā, jums ir jāievada telefonos slip.do, un tur prasīs ievadīt pasākuma kodu, tas ir kohēzija 1. Es varu tērēt tāpat. Un tad te rakstam kohēzija 1. Un tad atklikšķinam un nobalsojam par vienu no prioritātēm. Tad tās bija gudrāka Eiropa, zaļāka Eiropa, savienotāka Eiropa, sociālāka Eiropa un 5. varbūt pats svarīgākais iedzīvotājiem tuvāka Eiropa. Nu, tas ir viņas ļoti īsi nosauks, protams, viņas garākas, tā kā lūdzu balsojam. Es nebalsošu, lai nerādītu, kā es balsoju. Man te būs redzami arī rezultāti tūlīt. Aha. Full screenā. Lūdzu. 31 cilvēks. Ļoti labi. Still voting, yeah.
It's a very good tool, Lisa.
Yeah, yeah. Nu jā, apmēram bilde ir skaidra. Liels paldies jums par aktīvo dalību, par izturību. Paldies liels runātājiem par ekscelentajām prezentācijām. Es domāju, mēs visi, kā saka, esam pelnījuši aplausus paši sev un visiem pārējiem.